I'm Scott Lucas. This is EA Worldview's guide to the new Iraq War, the Insurgents. In the last couple of weeks, the world's attention has been drawn again to Iraq, the country where we supposedly had defeated Saddam Hussein in 1991, where the United States and other powers supposedly defeated Saddam Hussein in 2003, but a country in which there were then years of deadly insurgency, of a reaction to American occupation, and hundreds of thousands of people killed. The reason why attention has been drawn again to Iraq is because of the sudden rise, or apparently sudden rise, of an insurgency which we were told had been quelled. Who are these people who are fighting the government in Baghdad? Why would they decide to challenge the Prime Minister Al-malaki and his supporters, including the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran? First point, the Islamic State of Iraq and Sham. This is a group which is quite often represented as being in the lead in the insurgency, sometimes is considered to be the entire insurgency. Its roots go back to 2006, during the American occupation, when predominantly Sunni groups inside Iraq, some of whom had links to Al-Qaeda, decided to come together, a group which was commonly labeled as Al-Qaeda in Iraq at the time. They began attacking American forces. They attacked the Iraqi army. They tried to overthrow the government. They never succeeded. The initial leader of the Islamic State of Iraq, Al-Zarqawi, was killed in 2007. The group continued its operations, but we were told, indeed as recently as last year, that its threat had been suppressed. We did not have to worry about Al-Qaeda taking over the country. Nothing could have been farther from the truth. The Islamic State of Iraq continued its activities inside Iraq, sometimes with dramatic military operations, sometimes with attacks on prisons, freeing detainees who were allied to the group, sometimes by assassination. And they expanded their activities. They went into Syria to challenge the Assad regime initially, but then from the start of this year to fight Syrian insurgents, to try to take control of Syria as part of a greater Islamic state linked to Iraq. But second point, there are other insurgent groups. This insurgency could not have succeeded in taking the cities of Mosul and of Tikrit and of moving within 40 miles of Baghdad if it had only been the Islamic State of Iraq. There are many more units who are fighting against Iraqi security forces, against the army, against the police. These are predominantly Sunni groups. Sometimes they fight on religious grounds. They don't like a government led by Shia Muslims, including the Prime Minister, Mr. Al-Malaki. They don't like what they perceive as being Shia dominance of Iraqi security institutions, financial institutions, government branches. They believe that Iraqi law has turned into a form of discrimination against Sunnis, in some cases through unnecessary detentions, in some cases through death penalties, including one on the former vice president of the country, in many cases by the seizure of territory or financial assets. These Sunni groups often overlap with local groups who have grievances with Baghdad, who believe that their powers have been reduced as those of Prime Minister Al-Malaki have expanded, who believe that they effectively have been sidelined in the new Iraq. There are tribal groups who are involved, who believe that they have been suppressed, that they have been pushed aside. These groups, when they come together, for a variety of different reasons, but through one common goal, which is that they don't like Baghdad, become a powerful force. That's why they've succeeded in the last couple of weeks. But the third point about this insurgency, it's not new, and its successes are not new. Here's something that most of the media missed. At the start of 2014, a combination of Sunni groups, local groups, tribal units, and the Islamic State of Iraq took parts of two large Iraqi cities to the west of Baghdad, Fallujah and Ramadi. Not only did they take control of parts of those cities, despite repeated attacks by Iraqi security forces, including aerial bombardment, they have held on to most of their gains. That's right, the equivalent of a major city in the United States, or in Britain, or in France, whether you consider it to be New Orleans, or Brighton, or Lyon, had been taken over by these groups in January and continued to be occupied by them in June. This was the platform for the operations that took place last week. a collection of groups who had increasing financial strength, who have been recruiting more and more members, and who have the belief that they can win. And this is what the Iraqi government, whose own forces melted away last week, who have now drawn a front line around Baghdad and hope that it will hold, this is what they have to confront. I'm Scott Lucas, and this has been a beginner's guide to the new Iraqi war and its insurgents.